So Joyce, I think your point about crossover is really important, that ethically patients in the control arm should be offered a drug, Sacituzumab Govitecan, with proven OS benefit once they come off the trial and go into the second line setting. But Anna, what scientifically should we consider when interpreting a trial that has crossover built in? How do we interpret the efficacy data from ASCENT-03 and 04, where the control arm patients went on to receive the study drug in the second line?
Yeah. So we know that any amount of crossover is sufficient to impact overall survival. And so I think it is very important to take into consideration from a statistical standpoint how we interpret the data when it comes to overall survival. When there is crossover in the clinical trial, it's important to understand also what are the differences in the patient population that crosses over versus those who do not. It's important to have robust statistical methods to take that into account. Are there other endpoints that we could be utilizing to understand the impact of giving the drug earlier versus later on? So endpoints such as PFS2, but also can we conduct robust statistical analyses to help adjust for that impact of crossover? So whether that's using inverse probability censoring methods or others to try to understand what is the impact of those later lines, I think is important. And it's not just only for the trials that incorporate crossover, but now with these drugs available in certain parts of the world, we're also seeing crossover as part of standard of therapy. And so as we have these drugs available in later lines, it's very important that we be able to, from a pre-specified analysis standpoint, incorporate these into our clinical trial designs to better understand the impact of sequencing and crossover.
That makes a lot of sense. And so just to push you a little further on that, do you even look at the overall survival endpoint if a trial has crossover built into you? What's the value of OS in a setting where crossover is built into the trial?
So from, for example, studies like TROPION-Breast02 that have looked at Dato-DXd in the first-line setting, there were about 30% of patients in the control of those who were in the control arm and received subsequent therapy who received an ADC in the second-line setting. And despite that, we do see an improvement in overall survival in TB02. So I think it still is important to understand what are the overall survival results. But at a higher crossover rate, such as what we're seeing in ASCENT-03 or in ASCENT-04, the difference, right, in overall survival may be impacted because of that. So I do think it is still important to understand the impact long term, but I think we have to be very cautious in how we interpret the results, considering the percentage of patients who are receiving that subsequent ADC therapy that has a known overall survival advantage later on.
Yeah, if you want to look at the survival impact on one arm of the trial, you don't want the other people getting it.
Right.
You want to isolate the survival contribution of the new agent. But when both arms ultimately get it, how do you look at survival? You really can't. If it's a small percent, like 30% who ultimately get it because it's not built into the design, you can do a sensitivity analysis. Those who got it, subsequently those who didn't, but it was built into the statistical design. The vast majority got it, so that you don't have enough patients to do a really good sensitivity analysis. So the survival of the upfront SG patients is entirely interpretable compared to other options that we have, but the difference between the two arms becomes uninterpretable. I mean, because you get this drug that impacts survival either first line or you get it late second, and so it's hard to say that you would expect a huge difference in survival from the first line use of it. Although, as Anna said, longer follow-up might show us some hint of that, et cetera. But you lose your ability to really say, isolate the contribution of this drug on survival. You lose that opportunity.